Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been. Will be. How can there not? Just something about those blue skies, high banks, and high speed, all coming together in one perfect race. And it'll be here sooner than you think.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. I'm Roger Hoover. It's great to be with you from our CTSN studios as we get set for the third Saturday in October, Alabama against Tennessee. Start to go through everything that's coming up on the show today with our headlines that are always presented by RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us a smart board to go through everything that's coming up on the show today. We'll start by hearing from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, as he met with the media following Wednesday night's practice for the Crimson Tide. And yes, he will give an injury update on quarterback Bryce Young. Then we'll go one-on-one with Henry To'o. He started his career at Tennessee, but the last 2 years he's been the starting inside linebacker for the Crimson Tide. So he'll talk about the win against Texas A&M, plus what's coming up on Saturday against the Vols. Then Chris Stewart will join us to preview what's coming up tonight on Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show, plus the Alabama-Tennessee matchup. Barrett Jones will be filling in as our color analyst for the game, and he'll be joining us as well as our Crimson Tide Legend of the Week, sharing some thoughts on this Tennessee-Alabama rivalry. And then Bob Kesling is the voice of the Tennessee Volunteers. He'll be joining us for the other booth as we'll get a detailed scouting report on Tennessee. So that's what's coming up on the show today. The Crimson Tide football team, of course, getting ready for this rivalry matchup against Tennessee, the third Saturday in October. Actually on the third Saturday in October this year. Thank you, SEC office. 2:30 will be the start time Central, 3:30, of course, in Knoxville, but our radio coverage will begin at 11:30 across the network as Alabama tries to make it 16 wins in a row. It was a loss for Alabama against the Volunteers in 2006, the final year of the Mike Shula era. Then Coach Sabin came to town, and since then, 15 straight wins against Tennessee. Both teams undefeated. First time this matchup has featured both teams entering it undefeated since 1989. The Vols are 5-0, picking up wins already in the SEC against Florida and LSU. Meanwhile, wins against Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, and Arkansas for Alabama in conference play. How about the Crimson Tide soccer team? A new highest school ranking, number 2 in the nation. We certainly love to see that. And this Sunday, it's a home top 10 matchup against the Arkansas Razorbacks at 11 a.m. It'll be shown on the SEC ESPN network, so we look forward to that. Also, free coffee and donuts if you're making your way to the Alabama Soccer Stadium. Hope to have a huge crowd on hand to support Alabama against the 3-time defending champion in the SEC in the regular season, the Arkansas Razorbacks. And also, it's worth noting, Riley Parker has led the way in goals this season for the Crimson Tide. Very well could be the SEC Player of the Year when everything is said and done, and she had to miss all of last season with a knee injury. And her remarkable journey through being a commit to Alabama all the way back in 2015 to where we are now in 2020 was chronicled very well by Crimson Tide Productions, and they released that story on the Alabama Soccer social media accounts. Easiest way to go to find it is just on Twitter at Alabama Soccer. You really want to watch the 5-minute journey that they chronicle her rise from injury to what she's doing this season, being one of the best in the SEC. So final notes around Crimson Tide athletics. The volleyball team had a great win last night against Missouri. Now coming up this Friday, they'll be at home against Alabama State. Cross country hosting the Crimson Classic Friday morning. We had Amaris Tanisman join us on Tuesday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, to preview that. Softball last night participated in the Sand Mountain Showdown, an exhibition game against Jacksonville State. And since it was an exhibition, it did end in a 6-6 tie. But Patrick Murphy saw a lot of good things from his team last night as fall softball continues. And also it was announced that the football team will be hosting a home-and-home series with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's coming up in 2032, 2033, so plenty of time to prepare for that trip to Minneapolis coming up. And again, hopefully it's in September, and hopefully it's very warm up there. But a pretty cool series to see as Alabama looks to get revenge from that loss to Minnesota in the Music City Bowl. Well, we're not talking too much about revenge this week with Alabama winning 15 in a row against Tennessee, but head coach Nick Saban is keeping the Crimson Tide focused and ready to go for what he knows will be a tough game coming up on Saturday. Here's Coach's Checklist from Coach Saban.
So I think that, our emphasis this week has been on everybody, self-assessing, coaches, myself, players. Do you think you're really, playing to the level that people respect, to the standard that we have here, that your teammates respect? the discipline, the toughness, the effort to finish, focus on the next play, accountability to do your job. And those are basic fundamental things that I think are very, very important to being successful. And that's something that we really emphasized. I think the players have done a pretty good job so far this week. So, we got a tremendous challenge against a really good team on the road, SEC game, game day, all the things that make great games. So if you're a great competitor, you love great challenges, and this is certainly going to be a great challenge for us in what we expect to be a difficult environment. So Bryce continues to practice a little bit more. We got him on a little bit of a pitch count just to kind of wean him back into it and see how it goes. So we expect him to do even a little more tomorrow. So that's all I really have to say about that. Well, I think, the first time you do it, it's probably a little bit of a challenge for players that have never done it before, especially at certain positions where being able to communicate and hear, whether it's snap count, whatever, probably inability to communicate on defense if it's loud. Those things probably affect inexperienced players a little bit more than they do the guys that have done it before. But I think by this time, we've played a couple road games. You hope that experience has enhanced, the guys on the team's expectations of what's going to happen, how it's going to be, what they have to overcome, how they need to play, how they need to focus, in that kind of environment.
Crimson Drive is driven by NASCAR. Don't miss out on your chance to experience the great American race. Witness the stars of NASCAR leave it all on the track in hopes of becoming the winner of the 65th annual Daytona 500. Purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. As we roll along on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, of course, each and every episode of the show on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have one-on-one conversations with Crimson Tide football players, and this week we're talking to a former Tennessee Volunteer and now in his second year as the inside linebacker for the Crimson Tide, Henry To'o, as we look back to the win against Texas A&M and get ready for this Saturday against Tennessee. Walk us through the final play of the game. What'd you see as that play developed?
They came out in a 3-by-1 formation, and we thought they were going to attack the field because that's what they did the last time they were in the red area. But definitely called a good coverage. Coach called a good coverage for us to execute. They threw the ball in Terry. I made a great play. So, it was definitely a good moment for us to be able to buckle up and come off with a win.
You had a lot of tackles against Texas A&M. Also, Alabama got in the backfield, disrupted Haynes King a lot. What did you see, especially from the edge rushers?
Yeah, we did a great job. Coach Pete did a great job of drawing up some schemes for us to get free, get our guys one-on-ones on the edge, being able to get our great pass rushers, a chance to get back there and affect them. So I think we did a great job. Obviously there's room to improve. Always room to improve every weekend. But, I think we did a great job this weekend.
What do you like about the cheetah package?
Oh, we love it. You get Dallas, Braz, and Will out there. It's hard to stop. You got guys so aggressive, so big and physical, but so fast. And it's hard to stop them. And I'm part of that little cheetah package too, so it's definitely one of those moments where I want to go get a sack.
Certainly Alabama fans love that, and they love the fact that we're getting ready for the third Saturday in October. Obviously, you started your career at Tennessee. Just what did that game mean to you then and now?
Yeah, huge rivalry game. Everybody knows what it means to be, at Alabama, at Tennessee, how deep this tradition runs and how much, I wouldn't say hate, but the competitiveness that we have versus each other. So super excited. Our team is super excited about it. They're a great team. Love what they're doing down there. Have a great offense, great defense. So it's going to be a huge challenge for us. So we're super excited about it.
Do you stay in touch with many of your former teammates there?
Oh, definitely. That bond that you create with anybody that you play with, it never leaves. So those are still my guys. I love them to death, but this weekend is definitely enemies.
And now you're ready to go. What's it like facing an up-tempo offense like this?
Yeah, you just got to be able to get your call, see their tendencies, and fall back on your fundamental football. So being able to get everybody on the same page as quick as I can, get everybody going as fast as we can, and play football. Henry
To'o, we're glad you're in Crimson this week. Roll Tide. Thank you for joining us.
Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been, will be, and it'll be here sooner than you think.
Great conversation with Henry To'oto'o as we get ready for Alabama against Tennessee. And coming up on the call for us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, Chris Stewart, once again filling in for Eli Gold, not only on the ball game coming up on Saturday, but tonight's edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. He joins us each and every Thursday on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, to get his thoughts on Crimson Tide football as we get set for the third Saturday in October. Chris, another week has gone by, another win for the Crimson Tide, and you got out of Bryant-Denny Stadium, it seemed like, after the end of the ball game. How's everything going?
Survived, and I said, let's get out of here, and we did. And that was the PG version of all of that, but it was appropriate, I felt. And I think we're all just thankful that game ended when it did, with the score that it did. It was not Bama's best effort, but when you can find a way to win on a day when you're not your best, that's what championship teams do.
Obviously, we're talking about the final play of the A&M game, and over 60,000 people have seen your call of that game from our booth camera highlight that was put out by Ethan Carabin. What was your reaction when you watched it for the first time, seeing all the chaos around you as you called that play?
Probably didn't look a whole lot different than what it did just below us in the stands itself. Not surprised. I know what we all felt in the moment, but you're right. I don't know what the final number of people that saw it was, but if it was 60,000, 50,000 of them have texted me or sent me messages this week, it seems. It's, you know what that's like, Roger. You don't plan moments like that. You hope you get it right when it comes about, and you hope that you're able to walk that fine line of the same excitement that your audience does, and yet don't get away from what you're there for, which is to tell the story. So I hope we did that. And I do want to say here, the crew that we have, and the fact that everybody on that crew does their job so well, is what allows that moment from a broadcast standpoint to be successful, for lack of a better term. You, over the course of the game, helping me and assisting me with things that people have no clue about, whether it's helping remind me of what a read is for a live spot, whether it's pointing to something on the chart that's very relative that you're able to see through a play-by-play announcer's eyes yourself, and understanding what I am looking for or may need to point out, so that we collectively can tell. You know, I may be the voice that people hear telling that story, but that story is told by all of us. You play a major role in it. Butch Owens plays a massive role as the spotter on every single play. John Parker and his ability to say things, but also to have the ability to drop out and hold out in that moment so that the radio play-by-play announcer can be heard, and heard clearly. Because I've told this before, you and I've talked about it off air before. If the color analyst in radio screams over the play-by-play guy, which, let's not forget, the producer Tom Stipe is massive in making sure that even if somebody blurts something out, it's covered somewhat because he's lowered their microphone audio or muted it entirely in anticipation of somebody losing their mind. But with radio, Roger, if somebody else jumps in while we as play-by-play announcers are describing it, it's the same thing as you watching a game at home, and in the most crucial moment, somebody walks in front of your TV screen and blocks the view that you have. It's truly the same thing, because it's a distraction from what you're trying to focus in on. So I have great appreciation for what everybody adds to make that story, allow that story to be told. But the phrase "silence is golden" is accurate, and sometimes that's the best thing that can be done. And there was time for all of us to go nuts, but I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity for me to have mine as the play itself was taking place.
We appreciated it. We also loved that silence, getting to hear Rammer Jammer. Even it wasn't silent in the silence. It was a great moment for the Tide to celebrate that win over Texas A&M. And you're talking about the radio crew. We are having a bit of a change this week on the radio crew, getting ready for the Tennessee matchup. As once again, I'll be in the host sideline role for us. But Barrett Jones, former Crimson Tide captain, he's filling in for John Parker Wilson this week. I know you've known him since his playing days of the Capstone. Really fired up to work with him in Knoxville.
We just plug 5 stars in, man. Literally. And captains, that's the thing that's so neat is that all the guys and we hated losing Rashad. Not only is he a dear friend, but terrific as our sideline reporter, but we understood when the NFL came calling and he got that opportunity, he needed to take it. But it left a void, and we've been able to do it by patchwork, basically. And Jim Carabin, our boss, putting that together, bringing in some great people. We've loved having Christian and Corey, and you've done a fantastic job with what you've done and will do on Saturday. But when John Parker has to be gone this weekend, to be able to bring a guy who knows the rivalry and is also a tremendous broadcaster. I mean, Barrett has been working with ESPN and ESPN radio, and for family reasons, to have more time with his family, he stepped away from doing that on a weekly basis on the national game for
Roll Tide, and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson. Chris, another week is
the void.
And Chris, we have really a dream matchup in this series. 2 undefeated teams, both in the top 10, and we know Tennessee can score some points. It will be a challenging afternoon coming up on Saturday as Alabama looks for its 7th win this season.
It's a dream for neutral observers. Alabama fans prefer it when Tennessee's bad, just like Tennessee fans would love to see Alabama be bad again. It's less stressful and more fun when you know or feel very confident in the fact that your team will win with no sweat. But that's not what we've got this weekend. You're right. We've got 2 tremendous teams. It should be a great game. Hope people have been letting their nails grow out, because I got a feeling they're going to be biting them once again. And we're excited about being there, and what'll be a great setting on Saturday afternoon.
So that's coming up on Saturday, Alabama against Tennessee. Our radio coverage starts at 11:30 a.m. Central on the network. And coming up on Thursday, we will have Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show as well from Baumhauer's at 6:30. Chris, thank you so much for joining us here on the Crimson Drive on this Thursday afternoon. Look forward to the show later tonight and everything coming up on Saturday. Roll Tide.
Roger, Roll Tide. Thank you for everything you do.
Alabama fans, you've seen them on television, and they're sweeping the nation. Don't miss your opportunity to meet them and learn from the cornhole pros of ACL as the Hellman's ACL College Tour rolls into the Crimson Tide Sports Network Fan Fest for the Alabama against Mississippi State game on Saturday, October 22nd. Also, special Alabama legends will be dropping by. This is an activation you won't want to miss, so stop by the Hellman's ACL College Tour before the next home game for fun, games, and prizes. Well, speaking of an Alabama legend, Barrett Jones, as we mentioned with Chris Stewart just a moment ago, will be filling in for John Parker Wilson as our color analyst coming up for the broadcast of Alabama against Tennessee this upcoming Saturday in Knoxville. And Barrett was just in town as one of our honorary captains for the previous ball game against Texas A&M. So a great opportunity to catch up with Barrett Jones as we get ready to welcome him to the Crimson Tide Sports Network team this week. Roll Tide, how's everything going, especially after just being in Tuscaloosa this past weekend?
Yeah, Roll Tide. I had a great time being there. It was awesome. Great to see old friends and coaches and teammates. So I had a blast, and the game was a little stressful, but we found a way to win.
Certainly did. And for you, when people talk about your Alabama career, can you point to the fact of being a 3-time national champion? Is that what you're most proud of? Is that what you try to go to first beyond all the individual accolades you received?
I usually go to team captain because that was something that was voted on by the team. So I always felt like, the other awards, they're voted on by people with the media, most of whom have never watched offensive line. So, I went to the team captain. But yes, the national championships were awesome because obviously it was something we accomplished together. So those are probably the favorite ones to talk about.
And especially that 2012 team, there was a lot of resilience that was required by that group after a loss to Texas A&M to still work their way into the national championship picture and ultimately a huge win against Notre Dame.
There's no doubt. There was a lot of adversity. We were very disappointed when we lost that game. Coming off a really emotional game against LSU, we barely won. And then we lost we were down 20-0 to A&M before we could blink, and then kind of woke up and still had some opportunities to win down the stretch and couldn't find a way to do it. But we're very fortunate. Had a night that was unbelievable where everything went our way and found our way back to the national championship. And once we did, we did not waste our opportunity.
Well, it's certainly special for you guys to be recognized on the field at Bryant-Denny Stadium for 10 years since the 2012 National Championship game. But how cool was it when Coach Saban came back from the locker room? You know, he's getting his team ready to go against A&M, but it seemed like he loved seeing you guys on the field. Just what was that like for you?
Yeah, he was very gracious to spend some time with us on Friday, and obviously they're on the field. So, I think he understands the legacy he's created, and we're honored to be a small part of that. And he was very nice to us, and we enjoyed reliving some memories, and saw him at Nick at Noon too a little bit. So we got to talk quite a bit, and it's amazing he's still doing it. He's still churning out unbelievable teams and national championships. So it was incredible just to see him in action again. And I don't think he hasn't lost much fire. He's still got a lot of fire in his belly. Saw him on the sidelines getting after some people, and I was having some flashbacks to back in the day when that was me that he was getting after. Definitely cool to see him, and was glad that he it was so kind to us to spend time with us.
Well, that certainly was great. Well, that was last weekend. Now getting ready for this weekend against Tennessee. You're going to be pinch hitting for John Parker Wilson. As a color analyst on our broadcast, just how excited are you for this opportunity? We know you've done some broadcasting since your playing days came to an end, but what about coming to the Alabama radio team here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network?
Yeah, I'm pumped, man. It's going to be awesome. Worked for ESPN for 5 years, so I would say not too nervous, just excited to get out there and call the game. I'm dealing with a little bit of a raspy voice right now, so that's probably my biggest concern. Got to get the voice strong, but it's going to be different because I get to be biased finally. I had to be unbiased for a long time, so now I can just let my true colors show, and I can say we. I worked for a long time to never say we and to say they when I was calling, because I called probably 6 or 7 Alabama games, and I always had to say they. So now I get to say we, and it'll feel really good.
It really will, and especially for this ball game, Alabama against Tennessee, the third Saturday in October. Tennessee's playing really well. Of course, Alabama undefeated as well. Just how excited are you for this matchup, knowing what's on the line for both teams?
Yeah, huge game. A game I grew up going to a lot of times as a kid and watched every year, obviously, and being from Tennessee. This is the biggest Alabama-Tennessee game I can remember in a long time. Man, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of the last time where both teams were this highly. You can probably tell me that. But it's been a while since both teams were relevant in both ways. Alabama obviously has been dominant, but even before that, there were all years where Tennessee was really dominant. This was not an easy game on their schedule. So it's rare that both teams are playing so well and get a chance to match up, and it's going to be fun to be a part of it.
We look forward to having you with us in the booth coming up at Neyland Stadium on Saturday. Barrett Jones, just thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on getting to be an honorary captain and come back this past weekend. Can't wait to see you in Knoxville. Thank you again. Roll Tide.
All right, Roll Tide. Thanks, man.
Great guy, Barrett Jones. Can't wait to have him part of our team coming up this Saturday, and also may see him a little bit down the road as well this football season with us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. But great Alabama legend now joining us as our pinch hitter for the John Parker Wilson, as he'll be on assignment this week. But we look forward to having Barrett with us in Knoxville. Just next door in the other booth, you could say, we will see, of course, Bob Kesling called this game for the Vol Radio Network, and Bob has been the voice of the Vols for a very long time, and he joins us to give us a scouting report on undefeated Tennessee. A former Tennessee fullback and now the play-by-play voice of the Tennessee Volunteers, Bob Kesling, joins us from Knoxville as we get ready for the Tide and the Vols. And Bob, how you feel? Do you look back on your playing days fondly, first of all?
Oh, yeah. This is a true story. We played I was on the freshman team in 1972 here at Tennessee, and I had 9 carries for 36 yards. And I kept telling Coach Fulmer, who was a graduate assistant on that freshman staff in 72, with those gaudy numbers, I couldn't believe he didn't give me the ball more, but he didn't seem to take that in consideration. We actually did play in Tuscaloosa, and we took a bus full of guys down there to play. And so we're warming up at the, I guess, in the north end of the stadium. And of course, you got to remember back in '72, it's single decked all around, and it's nothing what it is today. And so, but we're getting all set to play artificial turf. I know it was hot. It was on a Thursday or Friday afternoon, and it was hot. And so, anyway, we're stretching before the game starts. And I'm, how you're always looking down at the other end, see how big those guys are down there. And I look at Don McCleary, who was our running back coach. And I said, Coach, look at those guys down there. I said, they're not that big. I said, I think we got a good shot at them today. He said, you donkey, that's just their specialist down there. That's not even their other guys. Said, just stretch and shut your mouth and let's get ready to play. So we stayed with Bama until fourth quarter. Then they took over the game. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And we had a good trip to Tuscaloosa.
So, of course, you played against Crimson Tide in a freshman game. Now you've gotten to call the Alabama-Tennessee game throughout the years. And we have a special matchup coming up this Saturday. Undefeated Tennessee, undefeated Alabama. Just what are your thoughts as we get ready for Saturday and having a matchup like this in this rivalry again?
Well, I just think it's great for college football for Tennessee and Alabama to have such a big stage on Saturday. I think it's great for SEC football. And it's really great for both of these teams, probably more so Tennessee than Alabama. Alabama's been here, but Tennessee has been trying to climb back up there and be on that same level of championships like Alabama has been enjoying the past couple of years. This Tennessee team we had a lot of anticipation. This was going to be a good team this year, but I think they've exceeded expectations. And I think a lot of that has to do with Hendon Hooker. Hooker is just playing at an extremely high level right now. He's playing at a Heisman Trophy level. The number of touchdown passes he's thrown he's thrown no interceptions this year. He takes care of the football. They're putting up points. He's spreading the ball all over the field to different receivers. One guy goes down. Cedric Tillman's out. Doesn't seem to slow him down whatsoever. They score 40 points at LSU. So, and this is a defense that's getting better. Last year, if you look at Tennessee, they had about 3 games where they were in the game in the fourth quarter, but just didn't have enough depth and enough quality players really to finish off the games. And one of those was Alabama. But now they're finishing off games in the fourth quarter. And I think that's been a big step forward for this team.
How have you seen teams that Tennessee has played so far this year react to the tempo and the pace of the game? It's a thing to try and stay competitive in the first half, but as 4 quarters go along, just how do teams deal with Tennessee's pace?
A lot of hands on hips and a lot of tongues dragging around. And it is fast. And then, you look at LSU, they put the game away at LSU with an 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter. And they slowed the tempo down, but they kept cranking out first downs. And so that's another step forward for this team to be able to, again, salt games away and do that 4-minute offense in the fourth quarter, which turned out to be an 8.5-minute offense. But, yeah, their tempo, what it does, I think, more though, so than even wearing down teams, it puts them in – they're so confused about how to line up quickly and what kind of formation are they in and how they get in this. And Tennessee has receivers running wide open in the other team's secondary, and they do it time after time after time. And it's pretty amazing how they do it. And I think the other thing, Roger, that really amazes me is how Hendon Hooker can handle all of this in 14 seconds. Get the play, get them lined up, read the defense, and call the perfect play, which he has done time after time. So it's kind of amazing to watch. It's fast-paced, but it's amazing how they are able to get them lined up and just get matchups that they want to have. And Jalen Hyatt has been a big addition to this team in the slot because he runs wide open right down the middle of the field, and it's amazing how many times he's been open, and now he's catching the ball, which even makes him more of a threat. And he's probably one of the fastest guys in the SEC.
Cedric Tillman had a good game last year against Alabama. We know he's been out since the Akron game for Tennessee. Any chance we see him this Saturday?
It's one of those things you probably got a better chance of getting information out of the CIA than you do out of these coaches these days. I would, if he plays, which, I think all Tennessee fans hopes he plays, it's hard to imagine he'd be at 100%. I mean, he had that surgery a couple of weeks ago, but we'll see. I don't know. Coach Heupel's keeping the cards pretty close to his vest. But even when he didn't play in the last couple of games, Ramel Keaton has stepped up. I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere and made a bunch of big plays against Florida. And it's kind of been the motto of this team, next guy up. And Squirrel White made some big plays in the LSU game at wide receiver. He's an Alabama guy. So they have been able to really brings some of these young guys along, and Brew McCoy has really played well for Tennessee. He had a big game last week as well, over 100 yards receiving. So they've been able to have guys step up. So I would guess that they're probably not going to count on Tillman. Anything they could get from him would be a bonus this weekend.
Defensively, you mentioned the defense has played a huge role in Tennessee's undefeated start to the season. Just who are some of the playmakers our fans should keep in mind getting ready for Saturday?
Well, Byron Young has been a two-time SEC Defensive Player of the Week and rushing off the edge. And Tyler Barron has played not only edge rusher, but now they're putting him in kind of one of those speed rush packages inside. And they've been able to get more pressure up the middle, driving the quarterbacks out of the pocket doing that. Of course, the Jalen McCullough at safety, we're not sure what his status, and he has had an altercation on Sunday, so we're not sure where he's going to be at safety. But Trayvon Flowers, the other safety, has been a leader on the team and has done a really tremendous job, lining guys up and getting people in the right position. Cornerback has been kind of a problem. Not a problem, but it's not been a strong point, I guess you would say, Warren Burrell is out for the rest of the season, and they've only got really two true cornerbacks on the team. So they've got some other guys mixing and matching over there. D. Williams, who transfer in, had been out all season. He got a chance to play against LSU. He's been out with an injury and also had a big punt return. So you might see D. Williams more in the secondary this week than we've seen in the previous games this season. But the guys up front, I think if you look at Tennessee, they're holding teams under 100 yards rushing per game. And I don't think anybody would have anticipated that before the season started. So their interior guys, Amari Thomas, some of those guys have really stepped up. Byron Eason, they've stepped up and they've played much better in that defensive front than I think most people anticipated.
A lot of Alabama and Tennessee matchups have come down to special teams and kicks at the end of games. Just where does Tennessee stand getting ready for this Saturday in terms of his special teams?
Well, they like their kicker. Paxton Brooks has been a veteran guy. He's been around a long time, punting the football and kicking off. And Chase McGrath had 4 field goals against LSU. He's the SEC Special Teams Player of the Week. So he's the transfer in from Southern Cal. He was here last year, and they've both been really solid. I mean, they've both been really good with their punting and also with their extra points. And then D. Williams last week had a long punt return against LSU on the second possession. He was able to return the punt and set up a field goal for Tennessee. So that gives them an added weapon with punt returns. And so, Tennessee's always stressed the kicking game. Back from General Neyland, it's always been an emphasis here at Tennessee, and the kicking game has been really solid. And I also think that Josh Heupel believes in the kicking game as well, and they've stressed it, and I think they're pretty good at it.
Well, again, you've been part of the Vol Network for a long time in a play-by-play role and also as a pre- and post-game host and a spotter as well. Just if I could give you a game from Knoxville, a game from Birmingham or Tuscaloosa that sticks out the most in your mind in this rivalry, what would you point to?
Well, 1982, I guess, is the one game that it stands out to me. It was Coach Major's first win over Coach Bryant, and how they carried him off the field and they tore the goalpost. Those days when you could tear the goalpost down and nothing really made. That ended another long winning streak that Alabama had in the series. And I just remember the joy in Knoxville, especially for Coach Majors, being able to finally get that win over Coach Bryant and Alabama. Then in Tuscaloosa, I guess it's the 5 overtime game with Casey Clausen and those guys. I mean, that was just a slugfest from the very start. And Birmingham, it has to be play number 1, Peyton Manning to Joey Kent, I guess, at Legion Field. So there have been so many memorable games. And the longtime Tennessee fans understand through all these SEC rivalries that they have, Alabama is still the one that is so special to Tennessee fans. And the one thing I like about it, it's a clean rivalry. It's a hard-fought rivalry. There's not a lot of this trash talking going on between I think both schools respect each other, and I think they respect their football tradition. And that makes for a healthy rivalry. Now, they compete and they get after it, and there'll be some people pretty steamed up on Saturday at the game. There's no doubt about that. But when it's over, I think both programs respect each other and both fan bases respect each other for what they've accomplished in football. So I think it's a great matchup on Saturday. I think it's going to be a great setting here, and I expect a heck of a football game. And I'm just glad to see the nation again back taking notice when Tennessee and Alabama play here on the third Saturday in October.
And it's finally on the third Saturday in October. We
Yeah.
like that, don't we?
Yeah. I can't understand why the SEC can't figure that out. It would seem like, okay, let's make the schedule out. Boom, third Saturday in October, Tennessee and Alabama. Let's build around that. But that seems to be a problem at times.
It certainly does. Well, we're glad it's here this year, and we're glad for a great matchup coming up on Saturday. Bob, just thank you so much for joining us previewing Tennessee. Look forward to seeing you at Neyland Stadium. Thank you.
Okay, Roger. Thanks a lot. See you.
Really fun to catch up with Bob Kesling as we get set for the third Saturday in October, Alabama against Tennessee. That's coming up on Saturday, part of a very busy weekend, so that means it's time for the Wickles Weekend Update, brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. Find out more at wickles.com. Let's take a look at what's coming up on the network this weekend. Well, of course, later tonight we will have Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show from Baumhower's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa, as Chris Stewart will host, filling in for You Like Gold. He'll be joined by Coach Sabin at the restaurant. Should be a huge crowd on hand. Looking forward to tonight's show. And then we will have the This Week on CTSN podcast coming up tomorrow. Perfect for the ride up to Tennessee, hearing all the best of our content from this past week as we get ready for Saturday's main event, Alabama against Tennessee, 2:30 p.m. Central kickoff. Our radio coverage will begin on the network at 11:30 a.m. So we can't wait to have you join us for the broadcast. And don't forget to watch the booth cam as well, as it'll be Chris Stewart as well as Barrett Jones calling this game coming up for us on Saturday. Then on Sunday, we of course take a look back at the ball game with head coach Nick Saban with his television show, and also a new edition of Tide TV this week that does feature a great one-on-one conversation with Wes Hart. So you don't want to miss that coming up on Sunday. And then on Monday, we'll talk all about Alabama, Tennessee, plus look ahead to Alabama, Mississippi State with Crimson Tide Rewind coming up at 6 p.m. from Baumhower's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. Corey Reamer will be along with me at the restaurant for that show. Crimson Tide Rewind will begin our next week of coverage coming up on Monday. Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, and you can be there for the 65th anniversary of the Daytona 500 on February 19th, 2023. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. That's going to wrap up this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Huge thank you to all the guests that we've had in the show today, including Chris Stewart, Barrett Jones, Bob Kesling, and of course Henry To'o, as we get ready for our really special rivalry, Alabama against Tennessee, coming up this Saturday in Knoxville. Thanks as well to our video producer, Ethan Carabin, putting this show together, and thanks to all of you for watching. Now let's get set for the third Saturday in October as Alabama looks for its 16th straight win against Tennessee, and also trying to improve to 7-0 on the season. Until next time, this has been Roger Hoover. Thanks for watching. Roll Tide.